Romans 9 is considered Calvinist meat. It is believed Romans 9 has solid truths which can only support Calvinism. A number of statements commonly used as proof texts for unconditional predestination. For example, God has mercy on whomever He will have mercy. I will have mercy on whomever I will have mercy. And I will have compassion on whomever I will have compassion. So then, it is not of him who wills, nor of him who runs, but of God who shows mercy. Wow! God has mercy on whomever He likes, and that's that. It's not of him who wills, but God. That's unconditional and all of God. Is that so? If we read that God has mercy on some and not others, and it is all up to Him, not based on any will or action of man, then Calvin was right. Yes. Yes? Is that what Paul is teaching? No. How can we see this is not what Paul is teaching? Simple. Read these verses in their context, and they cannot be interpreted that way. God is then not read as capricious and a despot, where all are fated to any destiny of His will. First context. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God? Certainly not. The quote of Paul is supposed to illustrate God as righteous. Read as being capricious makes Him look unrighteous. Opposite to the truth Paul uses it for. Paul declares in advance, certainly not. It is something to demonstrate God's righteousness, according to the preceding verse. Second context. Paul is not quoting a text that speaks in itself. For he says to Moses, when Paul makes the quote, he mentions who it was said to, only for this to be understood with that mention. God will have mercy on whomever He will have mercy makes no sense without knowing why this was said to Moses. For he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whomever I will have mercy. It is not just a quote Paul made like so many, but a reference to something said in a particular situation. For God says, to Moses. Third context. Does the rest of Scripture agree with a capricious and tyrannical God who will have mercy on whomever He will have mercy? No. With the merciful, you will show yourself merciful. With the merciful, you will show yourself merciful. This is not capricious. This is righteous behavior, scriptural. So here we see the first and third context proving, confirming each other that God is righteous. Explaining the second context. So, how is God saying to Moses, He will have mercy on whomever He wills, a demonstration of righteousness? Only when the steps which lead up to God saying this to Moses are observed can it be seen that way. What steps? After the sin of making a golden calf, 1. God wanted to obliterate the unbelieving Israelites and start again with Moses. Let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them. And I will make of you a great nation. 2. Moses' response by interceding, standing in the gap, to prevent God from doing this. This ends with Moses offering himself as a scapegoat. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, I pray, blot me out of your book, which you have written. 3. God replies, and is clear-cut as to the only persons whose names are blotted out of the book. Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book. 4. As God accepts Moses and his prayer, sparing the people, Moses pleads for God to go with them and to show himself and his glory. If I have found grace in your sight, that I may know you, show me your glory. 5. And this is now where our passage comes in. I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. As God now reveals himself to Moses, following this immediate exchange, God is saying, I will not blot out your name from the book, Moses, for you have not sinned against me. I will have mercy on whomever I will have mercy. That means you, Moses. There is no way your name will be wiped from the book, as you have been faithful. I will act in righteousness. So then, it is not as Moses willed. Moses willed to be damned, and the people totally forgiven. It is not of him who wills. It is not according to who exerts himself, not of him who runs, but it is of God according to righteousness. He who sins against him only will not receive mercy. That is the context. Paul had said God calls people for his purposes in the nations. To prevent the idea that God was unrighteous in how he treats people, he then explains by this example with Moses that God is not acting unrighteously in regards to the individuals used in the nations. Their eternal destiny is based on his righteous mercy. If they live in mercy, they will receive mercy. With the merciful, you will show yourself merciful. As Jesus said, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Conclusion. Paul, to demonstrate God's righteousness, says, for he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whomever I will have mercy. So then, it is not of him who wills, nor of him who runs, but of God who shows mercy. Moses willed to be held guilty, and not the Israelites. God said, no, you have been faithful. Only those who sin will be held guilty. God gives mercy in righteousness. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Addendum. As this is the second of 3 videos on Romans 9 in the Quick Answers to Calvinists format, it's recommended to see Quick Answers to Calvinists Romans 9 verses 11 to 30, which preceded this one.